All right. Well, this is the Bachelor Pad minus everybody that is supposed to be here. Our engineer decided he was going to sleep. Decided it was, he told me last night he was going to be here, be on time. I told him not to come. Of course, I call him and he's asleep. So I do have David in the studio. We do have Ian over there on the couch chilling all the way from Atlanta. Didn't expect to see you today.
All right.
There we go. So, all right. So one of the first things that we wanted to get into and talk about, obviously we're going to talk about the Kathy Griffin, the Trump, obviously the Bill Maher thing, right? Have you all watched Real Time with Bill Maher? Are you like?
Yeah, I've watched it. I watch it all the time. Honestly, I enjoy the show, so I've seen it. I watch it. I try to watch it every time it comes on. Usually what I do is Saturday mornings when I'm out and about, I'll play it in the car, just listen to it as I ride around. So, yeah, I'm an avid watcher / listener.
Okay, and what about you?
From time to time, I haven't watched it recently. I'm actually not a Bill Maher fan, so
okay,
there you have it.
That's right. No, and that is and he's extremely liberal, right? The liberal platform is extremely high, right?
Yeah, I think that it's probably as high as you can get. Because not only is he liberal, but he's an atheist. Like, the list could grow. So, yeah, but it's definitely a liberal-leaning show.
For sure, right? Yeah. Now, as a comedian, he's not that funny to me, right? I do know that when the show, I've watched it for a long time, but I also watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which is a good show, right? Any satirical, political show, any which way, I kind of dig, right? And, between that and documentaries and whatever, I'll always, lend an ear. All right, so the Bill Maher, controversy, what's going on, right? I think we all saw it. I didn't get to watch it in no pun intended, but Real Time, the name of the show. I didn't watch it as it was live. I do have a Fire Stick, so I did watch it, and it wasn't cut out like everybody else that watched it on Friday or Sunday or whatever day it comes on. They missed, it was already cut out. HBO decided to cut it out.
Well, yeah, if you didn't see the episode that aired, that first episode before they aired the rerun, then, yeah, they did cut that part out. Okay.
Now, his comment with the gentleman, the senator or congressman from Nebraska, kept talking about, we'll come to Nebraska and whatever, and come here, work in the fields with us, right? Mm-hmm. Work in the fields. Now, if you've ever done radio, you've been in front of a mic, or you've done comedy in any which way, there are keywords, right? And it's kind of the way I work. I'll hear something and I'll have a joke or a quip it or something that'll come after. So obviously, work in the fields led him to.
Well, okay, so let me start by saying that that Saturday morning, I was playing it from YouTube. So it was the first episode that aired. And when I was listening to it, what I heard was a senator from Nebraska make an odd comment that usually, like you said, is a keyword. Usually when you hear somebody say, hey, you should come work the fields, the first thing that you're going to think of is a slave. And he said, hey, why don't you come work the fields? And I said, in my head, I'm like, did he just say that like slavery? So when Bill Maher gave that response, I laughed out loud because that was clearly probably the same response I would have given. So, and it's funny because to me, like I said, I laughed out loud. I didn't see anything wrong with it because to me it was the perfect response to what was said. And I can't say that I've seen Bill Maher stand up and stuff like that, but I know that one of the things I like about him and the show is how quick that he's very good at being in the moment and being quick and being able to come back in that banter. And I think that makes a better show host than being a comedian or whatever. So in that moment, somebody who was quick, now granted, I'm sure it probably wasn't the best thing for him to say, but like I said, I thought it was funny. I've talked to older people, younger people, and it's interesting because what I've encountered is a lot more older people don't have a problem with it. And a lot more younger people do have a problem with it. Because people my age and older that I spoke to about it all gave the same reaction. Like, yeah, I heard it and was laughing out loud. Like, what type of response would you give to that? So, so in the moment, yeah, and even after now, I still don't see anything wrong with it.
Right, and it could have gone any number of ways, right? Because he could have went, do I look Hispanic to you? I don't work in the fields, right? Those are the jobs Americans don't want to do. Ha ha ha. And it could have gone in any, in any weird direction. It was quick. When I watched it, it wouldn't be the response I would have given. I was like, I would have, come work in the fields. It was like, hey, dude, I don't even cut my own grass, right? Like, dude, I burn. Like, I'm peach colored. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be out in the sun for longer than 10 minutes, And number two, don't y'all have, equipment for that? Like in Nebraska, when's the last time somebody actually saw a migrant farm worker or any number of things? But the big, elephant in the room with it is, his use of the N-word, right? And I'm a house, Now, it spawned a lot of interesting talk. And whether you like it, dislike it, the millennials are upset by everything. Right?
Yeah.
They're upset by, and I deal with them all day, right? I must see 35, 40 of them a day. And I pick their brain left and right. Now, personally, everyone, Killer Mike, he was on, obviously, he's been most notoriable for anyone, he's not doing a ton with music per se, but more of a political activist, right, with the Bernie Sanders campaign. And it was weird because it brings up the First Amendment conversation, right? And it's funny because I did an anthology on everyone, with the NWA movie coming out, right? We all lived through that, right? If I didn't have that bumping in my Fiero at 17, 18 years old, every suburban kid, every inner city youth, and it was amazing because there were a lot of things going on. Police brutality, obviously in Los Angeles, gang violence. So there were a lot of things going on, but everyone forgets 2 Live Crew, right? 2 Live Crew band had to go in front of Congress. It had everything that you could ever imagine. Yeah, I don't even think it was touched on even before until the 60s with the Doors with Jim Morrison, Elvis with the, only viewing him from waist up.
Yeah.
But with that First Amendment, Killer Mike, I don't know if you saw him on TMZ or whatever, but he basically said, look, from an artist and an artistic standpoint, it's perfectly fine. There is no law against it. Where does censorship begin and when does it end? He was like, as a black man, I think that was messed up. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't like it, and I was offended, right?
Yeah.
So, and it was interesting, right, to be on both sides, because it's, out of everyone you talk to, some people are like, man, I laughed out loud. I found it comical and, topical at best. And then other people were extremely offended. So then to have somebody who's threaded on both sides that went, look, I get it. No, we should be able to say X, Y, and Z. And number two, no, but I didn't personally like it.
I mean, well, for one, it's such a sensitive word that, everybody has their own issue dealing with it because everybody is different. Everybody hasn't had the same interactions with people and the same things that happen in their life as everybody else. So you have some people who grew up in places where, to them, that's how they communicate with people. You have some people who grew up in places where that's what people called them. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Right.
So everybody, and I think that the overall rule usually is just don't say it because you don't know how people are going to take it. And I've had this conversation with people. To me, it's not that serious. If you're saying it in a malicious manner, that's one thing. If you're saying it just not in a malicious manner and knowing that this person is malicious, then to me that's a different thing. Now, for Ian, he can feel completely different about it. He can feel like, I don't want to ever hear anybody say that word, and that could be his opinion. But it's because we've had different interactions with people and different, our paths in life have been different. So, I think I found it funny because I know that to me, Bill Maher isn't a racist. if Bill Maher was a racist and he said it, if it was Jeff Sessions saying it, then I'd be like, whoa, time out. like, no, we got to talk about this. But to me, Bill Maher isn't a racist. But that's just because I've had interactions with people who are really racist. And to me, that's just vernacular, and to some extent. So it was nothing malicious, so I don't take offense by it. But then again, there are a lot of people out there that do take offense by it. At the same time, there are a lot of people out there that just want to have stuff to be offended by it too.
For sure.
And that's why you kind of got to, tiptoe around this. And everybody's extra sensitive because with Trump in office, with Trump in office, everybody feels like political correctness should be thrown out the window and you should just be able to say whatever you want to. So it's a weird time that we're living in. But when dealing with that, you have to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. Because like I said, some people are cool, some people aren't. And some people who aren't cool will be very vocal and very physical with letting you know that they're not cool with it.
Oh, for sure.
And that's why you kind of got to tiptoe. But, people are talking about should he be fired? Should they take the show away? And I'm going to say this, saying that one word isn't nearly the level of stuff that Bill O'Reilly was doing and these Fox News people who really should have been out of a job. Like, to me, that's not something that you should lose your job for.
Well, you know what's weird? We touched on a couple things last night. Now, Eric, who somehow didn't find it like with everybody else to make it into the, and maybe it's because he talked himself out last night. We literally went at it for, God, it had to have been like 2.5, 3 hours. I think the phone finally cut off, and I think neither one of us were like gonna re-up the phone call. But when we discussed some of the things last night, it was weird. I came to a couple different. My mind works a little different than most, but the N word is a lot like weed, right? You've got 6 or 7 people that walk in this door, smoke marijuana, but you won't know it, right? You could have worked with them for the last 10, 12 years, and then a weird conversation and be like, oh, well, shit, I get down, right? Well, like, I had no idea. I never would have known. And it's a lot of the same thing with with using that word and that term, right? There's a million people you run into throughout the day that will not say it because of whatever, but in certain circumstances, it'll be 3 white dudes, shit, what's up, and then it goes back and forth, right? And it's weird to me, right? Because even when I was talking to Eric last night, just as a, using it as an adjective or using it as a, just throughout conversation, kept repeating it and saying it to me. Of course, I busted him. I was like, hey, man, I'm offended by that. I appreciate if you wouldn't use that word. He was like, man, come on. Of course, we were joking around, but it comes out so fluently as a term of endearment, right? And then you've got the individuals like Bill Maher and who's probably most notable, De Niro, right? Anytime you intermingle enough with different cultures and races, that, like dating black women, right? We all know that I have a proficiency to tell you the truth. If there was
proclivity,
if
inclination,
I would definitely in a room. I don't care if there was four blonde, brunette, African American female. My eye automatically leans towards that. So I do think that Caucasian, white people that kind of have immersed themselves enough, whether it be dating culturally, through a certain period of time. Bill Maher's had African American girlfriends. De Niro, I think he almost dates exclusively, right?
Yeah, exclusive.
Right? I mean, so it is kind of weird, but obviously you don't see De Niro saying X, Y, and Z. You don't. So there's so many weird, like, twists and turns inside of it that I had a talk with a couple, older gentlemen, right? And it was weird because I had a talk with an older country white gentleman, obviously being in Texas, and an old school, black fella from either Louisiana or like the border, like Port Arthur, down that way, right? Yeah. And the Gulf side.
I know exactly what that is.
And, through sitting around and, having a conversation, I'm pretty personable, so I sit around and have a conversation. I like old people, right? I like young people. I like everybody. So as I'm sitting around and talking to him, he was like, I almost prefer if I ran into that old white man and whatever, they had a conversation and separated and we had all talked And he was like, I almost appreciate when I run into somebody and I know how they feel. Like, look, for whatever reason, I don't like y'all. Like, just as we're gonna be cordial, we're gonna do whatever, but I don't like y'all. So whether it be older black man who was like, look, you goddamn white Peckerwood, this and that. He was like, you seem to be all right, but just so you know, as a whole, I don't like y'all. I just assume stay over here, y'all stay over there.
I know people like that,
right? And it's kind of interesting when you have that, because there are so many different, I don't even necessarily want to say factions, but just differing beliefs.
But you have to think about this. That same older black guy who was from Louisiana, because I can talk about this because my father's from Louisiana. I ask him all the time. He grew up in the time.
Louisiana's horrible. Oh, yeah. Still to this day, Louisiana ain't right.
And he grew
I think I called you when I was down in Houston. I was in Sun and some weird places, and I was like,
nah, all of it. It's all bad, all down there. But he grew up in a time where segregation was the law, where there was a whites only water fountain, a colored water fountain, a whites only bathroom, a colored bathroom. When he wanted to go to a restaurant, the few restaurants that they could get food from, they'd have to go to the back door of the restaurant, stand outside and wait for him to bring the food out. So after growing up and seeing that, at some point that's going to get embedded in your mind. At the same time, when you grow up around the people when your dad is putting on a white sheet and going out with his friends at night, and they're hanging black people outside your house, that gets ingrained in you too. Like, I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago, and I always tell people, I don't have any kids, but I tell people with kids, you have to realize that kids soak in everything they see.
Early childhood development. Psychology will attest to it.
I was telling a good friend of mine that, you can't do things for kids. You have to do what's best and what's the best environment for them to be around, because they soak in everything. So when the white guy who was meeting with his clan brothers in the backyard, not thinking that the son was in the window watching them, seeing what they're doing, they're taking that to school and telling their friends, and that's how stuff like that spreads.
Hell, if your dad grew up as a postman, what did you want to be? I want to grow up and be a postman like Dad.
And so that's why a lot of times you find that deep hatred, because of the situations that they grew up in. And I think now, like you said, millennials are so quick to be offended by something, but it's because they didn't have to go through any of that. Because slowly but surely, not saying that it's totally alleviated right now, but they didn't have to go through the same type of stuff. They grew up in situations where schools were segregated. Where schools weren't segregated, where they, black kids, white kids, Hispanic kids, Asian kids, everybody went to school together for the most part. So the way that they see things is a lot different from the way that we see things in the generation before us, because everything's a little bit different. Now, the problem is that you can't be so easily offended by everything. Everything can't be offensive. Like, sometimes you got to pick and choose your battles.
And if this is a point that we got into yesterday also, that it's psychological, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now, we all know I've had some trials and tribulations in my life, right? I went away for a minute, but I did learn through a large portion of that here's when I was talking to Eric last night, right? We talked about a few things that as we had the conversation, I went, look, if a tree, go back to a tree falls in the forest, right? And some of this is Dr. Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, right? Some of it is philosophical, universal theory at best. Mm-hmm. But while we were sitting here right now, and we're sitting here and we're chilling, let's say I have a girlfriend, which ain't true because I only mess around with, ladies of the night, right? So let's say I had a girlfriend, right? And I was all caught up in my relationship and everything, right? And let's say that right now at 10:36, she cheated on me, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know about it right now. We're sitting here having a conversation. And it happened at 10:36. At 10:36, I'm completely immersed in this conversation, what we're talking about. Tomorrow at noon, I get a phone call. Hey, man, just to let you know, man, at 10:36, I walked in and, man, there were 3 people. She was airtight. I think there was a midget. There was all kinds of weird stuff, right? At that point, the learning and knowing of it is all of a sudden, so the happening, right? So taking away some of the power of it. If somebody said something hateful, mean, racist, whatever it may be, the saying of it really doesn't matter, right? Because you know, if my father passed away tonight and I didn't learn about it until tomorrow at 10:36, okay. So I didn't know about it. We had a good conversation. We might go out and have some sodas after this or whatever. Everything was good until I learned of it, right? So then in the most common way, when something is said, right, and it's said, we have an ability to take that in through our ears. Your mind rationalizes, what did you just say? So we're dealing with, you just said something mean and hurtful towards me. So the word or any behavior like that lessens in its overall power. It's how we deal with it. And that's kind of why we have 5 or 6 different takes on it, from African Americans, from whites, from millennials, to old schools, to whatever. Everyone feels and thinks about it differently because it's their own personal psychology and how they deal with things. Now, I had to learn that if somebody got up and threw some stuff and whatever, immediately risk reward has to come in. So if you do this, I'm going to put my hands on you and I'm going to hurt you. So if I put my hands on you and hurt you, it doesn't matter. The law said I should have just asked you to leave. Now, my emotions got a hold of me and went, how dare you? If you do this, I'm going to react in this manner. So not to say that it's not, that it's not hurtful or, offensive but I think it all boils down to an individual's personal psychology. What have they dealt with? What have they learned, throughout their life? How well or highly evolved is their emotional status to deal with some of those things when they do come up? Which, though, that's some of the things that go around my mind. I actually believe I'm borderline sociopathic now because I really don't care about much, right? I care about if my friend is offended or if somebody's being hurtful or hateful or whatever. It's in my nature, the way I was raised, to not even worry about, you take care of it. I would, you will shut your mouth now. Right. But that's why when I listen to everyone, Wendy Williams, her reaction, Killer Mike, his reaction, there were like, who else was it? Ice Cube is going to be on the next Bill Maher. I don't know if you watched it before, but I think everyone who didn't, it's going to bring a lot of listeners, because Ice Cube is not going to go easy on him, right? He's going to he's a very smart individual. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I think if there is a way to watch it, live and sit there and have a viewing party, I think that would be worth it. Like, skip game 5 or 6. We already know how it's going to play out, right? So that, I think, will be interesting. But I think the conversation has to be had. And I do think there is something with, and Travis he's a big proponent on, he's super atheist, right? He's actually on the atheist board of whatever, moved to Michigan, somehow weaseled on the, science overall, right?
I mean, hey, to each their own. I'm a believer, and see, this is what I think that it's funny to me. I think that a lot of people in this country forget that in this country, you're free to live whatever life you want to live as long as it doesn't infringe on somebody else's life. So if that's what you want to believe, more power to you. I fully support you to be able to do whatever you believe, because that's the way it should be. And that's what the problem is. People get offended at what other people do that have nothing to do with their life.
See,
I would wager that the problem is offense in general. The fact that in our culture we start treating offense as if it means something. It's all on the individual. You try your damnedest not to offend someone. If they want to be offended,
that's true.
They will.
That's
so
true.
The idea of, I'm offended, you should be sorry for that reason. I'm sorry. Look, I may be offended by the word purple. Right?
Exactly.
Maybe I was raped by a purple clown. I don't know. But the word perfect
Very well
is offensive
possible.
to me. So I'm now going to pick what you get to say because of my own weird delusions. I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
I'm kind of offended by your haircut. You look like Friar Tuck over there today. But that is and for me it's a psychological question, right? That everyone's personal psychology is a little bit different, right? In the way, how introspective are they? How far have they turned the mirror back on themselves and figured out, why do I get offended? People that blow off the handle. We all know we've got an angry friend at work that we're at work and there goes Jim. He's losing his losing his stuff again. So that is that's his main point is everyone. It's impossible to not offend and he doesn't try to and is very non-apologetic in the process. It's like, look, I'm sorry if you're offended. I'm not sorry if you're offended. You probably need to work some stuff out.
And if you're offended, you probably should be. You should be exposed to more. You've been way too sheltered. And I'm sorry, the whole world doesn't work the way that it works inside of your head. And as for the personal experiences, you can I've talked a little bit about this general topic today of just being offended and whatever. I don't understand. Like, in nowhere else in the world, I feel bad about something. Where does the rest of the world come rushing and like, oh my God, you did? Well, how can we change the world so that you don't feel that way? I'm sorry, we adapt to the world around us. It's not the other way around.
And think about it at the end of the day, and I hate using weird cliche, and that one, it got me as soon as I moved back. At the end of the day, it is what it is. Certain sayings that you don't hear everywhere else across the country.
Right.
But with that, if you died, right, tonight, wow, it's crazy. I would be affected, right? People in your close, the rest of the world would keep moving along. And you know what? People would still go get married and still go do X, Y, and Z and whatever. I would text somebody every time I go to the city because you're my go-to. Every time I come downtown, I'm like, hey, Dave, what's going on? If you forgot about me, we're going to hang out. But other than that, that's where, like, the worldview, the universal, like, worldview and the singularity of you as a person, right? You being offended means nothing to the rest of the planet. I don't care what somebody had for lunch. I'm happy you had lunch. If you want to tell me about what you had for lunch, cool. You had spaghetti. Was it good spaghetti? Heavy on the garlic? Light on the salt? That's cool. But I don't necessarily care what my neighbors are having for dinner. I'm happy that I have food on my plate, right? So your personal, perspective of everything that goes on is really all you can deal with, because you see, anytime you try and lump and group people together, even inside that group, you've got some that believe this, some that believe that, some that are offended by this, some that are here,
And see, the problem for me about a general offense, not just in the concept of why it doesn't make sense that we should stop the conversation there, but it literally hijacks the conversation. Because someone's offended, we can't talk about the reason we came together to have this conversation. There is a problem in the world, and we're not getting any closer to addressing what is the cause of it. What is the source problem? Because we're now worried about what it is that you in particularly do not like. And that's not going to be the same as anyone else we talk to. Everyone is personalized. So if we're going to break it down by, hey, this one time I saw this cop and this happened to me this way, whatever. I've been tased till I pissed myself, all right? Cops aren't particularly very good with me either. But if we're going to talk about the specific instances, and no, you don't get it. This cop was, okay, great. We have identified. No one, I don't think anyone above the IQ of like 12 or mustard or something would argue that there's not a systemic problem, right? So the idea of it's this very specific one. I brought up a reference to the 1974 announcement of moving drugs from being a misdemeanor to a Schedule I felony. I would have to concur that has a lot more to do with black culture and all the other shit of it being constrained in some sort, but no one's talking about it.
And what was the actual Nixon
it was Nixon's
statement?
FBI, and Nixon's FBI director.
That was all that most lies.
Right. And
his direct statement to the media was by doubling down on the war on drugs, we can disenfranchise and break up hippie and black communities and rest assured that we can have a Republican presidency. That was their plan for the re-election. So they started putting everyone in jail where you can't vote anymore after you get that level of felony. And then what happens when you get out of jail? You got to check the box, right? Everywhere you want to get a job, you got to pay your fees.
And actually, there's some places now where you can vote with the felony. There's some states that allow you to vote with the felony.
I'm talking about not the ones.
But
voting is just a small portion.
But even
we all see how that works out.
And if you notice, especially when Obama was in office, they try to rolled back a lot of the stuff that they were doing. And even as far as cutting sentences for people who had gotten these harsh sentences that they should never had. But now, you don't know what's about to happen because it could all go right back to where it was before. And it's just
that's the way it should have been. It's a cut. I was talking to someone else about it. The busted papers in Austin and Texas or whatever, and it looks around for everyone's county's mugshots. So if you look through it, you want to see about a clear differential. You look over, find me a white dude in one of those pictures that has under 2 ounces of marijuana and he went to jail for it. Show me one.
No,
you're not going to find one.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. I was like, I've got white friends from 13 all the way up through, my current age now that have been caught, and I have not seen them go to jail for weed. Almost every one of my black friends that have been caught with weed went to jail for it.
Now, when we were talking with Eric, and I know you overheard some of the conversation last night, it seems like the conversation will always go, and rightly so, but I think any educated individuals out there, right, know the history, right? Yes. When you go back to, abolishing slavery, Jim Crow, you go through, if you've looked at it historically, yes, and this is what I hate from the generalized, country old white guy, motorcycle rider. We've got one who sits in here. We do nothing but argue every day, but he seems to come back every day, right? And God damn it, it's been, 400 years and whatever. And I'm like, dude, do you not understand through the civil rights movement, Jim Crow, going through whatever. So you think that magic poof, everything was wonderful, right? That, okay, so here, no, you've got your freedom. We've got segregation. Do you think they got great, did they get great school books? And was the educational system and, with the war on...
And even on top of that, one of the ways that you build wealth is through home ownership. And a lot of places, they were denied being able to buy homes.
And got busted recently for having 2% or 3% on average for if you checked African American, 2 or 3% bump on interest rates.
And so when you have to start from behind the starting line, you get kind of used to stuff like that happening. But it's when other people can't admit that it happens is where the problem comes in.
But see, here's where I think that the goals are somewhat misaligned, because trying to get people to admit that something is wrong and figuring out a solution to the problem are two completely different things. No matter what you want, that dude with the fork and the coveralls and whatever, you won't get a good mind from him because he doesn't want to. Right? He doesn't want to think about it rationally. But when you identify a specific problem that you have identified, right? What's happening about it? Where is the leadership, the accountability that comes out to tackle that problem?
Well, for one, I wouldn't say that. For one, you have to admit there's a problem in order to fix it. If to you there's no problem, there's nothing to fix. The first step is getting people to understand there's a problem, or at least admitting. Because I think a lot of people do see it's a problem, but don't want to say anything because they're pretty much like, you're on your own.
Yeah, I was very unclear. That I should probably specify. Because I'm one of my biggest taglines of why I claim to be so controversial, why I don't care, whatever. That you can't name me a single problem on this planet that cannot be solved without having to talk about it. You have to talk about it to identify the problem. Right? So yeah, agreed on the same page there. But there's a difference between trying to get. It doesn't matter when you have a normal, just single person idea. That doesn't matter. You have to attack influence. You have to take influential people. For my atheist thing, where I kind of shaped up this whole thing of getting change. I can argue with every Christian I come across, but it doesn't. Who cares? I'll go back and forth with them. Not to say I haven't deconverted or moved them close to a line of okay, cool. Because even though the common misconception is you're not going to change my beliefs, I'm not going to change yours. The fact of the matter is, if you look at specific arguments in that, in a debate or a back and forth thing. After an argument with someone, there are certain things that you won't say again because you found out that it was wrong. Right? Your whole opinion didn't change, but you may have changed and conceded little points. Like, okay, I get it. Yeah, so this thing can't happen and whatever. And both sides learn a little bit more. So you're inching closer towards a concession. It's not going to happen overnight. It never happens in one conversation. It takes a while.
I mean, I think I can firmly say that being a good Catholic boy, that there's nothing that you can say to confirm me. We can have conversations. I love talking religion, but
it sounds like somebody that's booked himself on Reverend Blazer's.
There's three. You have to answer one of three categories. I guess 2 questions. Do you care if it's true? Is the first question.
Do I care?
Do you care if your beliefs are true?
Not all of them.
Then we won't have the conversation. Because again, if you don't care if it's true, then what is it that I could say that would make you change your mind?
But but see, I'll say this. To me, there's stuff in the Bible that isn't necessarily true that you're not supposed to take at face value. So there's a lot of stuff that's said in there. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically a history book. You have the history of the Hebrew people leading up until the birth of Christ, and then you have the story of Christ written from 4 different perspectives, essentially.
One of which is legitimate.
I mean, but think about it like this.
Clear forgeries.
But think about it like this though. If we could.
As much as I don't want to say, hey, come and get closer or whatever, you might as well bring your chair to.
But we could sit here and Jake could take this Mountain Dew bottle and throw it against the wall right there, and all of us write down what we saw, and all 4 of us would see 4 totally different things, even though we saw the same thing. We would describe it in different ways. The way that we talked about it would be in different ways, even though it's the same. Even though we all saw the exact same
But all
thing.
of our stories would conclude that a bottle of Mountain Dew hit a wall.
I mean, yeah.
You wouldn't expect that one of us to say it bounced off a tire, or it hit a lion, or something out of that wall.
I mean,
Daisy
what
chain
exactly-
conversations could if it was passed down, verbally and whatever. Also,
But I'm just saying all 4 should. But if right now we grabbed and hit the wall, all 4.
I'll throw this goddamn thing. Don't
It
test me.
should all have something sort of a bottle hitting a wall being the part. There may be different details.
it's different
on
details and
perspectives,
stuff.
But
how do Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell different stories?
First off, glad you brought it up.
Okay.
Most theologians are accepting of the idea that Matt is the only one. So Luke and John are definitely forgers. You can tell it's very clearly at least 5 different authors that are writing across. The handwriting completely changes from throughout book to book. You can tell where it's stitched together.
Okay.
And done through those ones. So they're not direct accounts. And secondarily, the people that were named, you know that their names were not Mark, Matt, Luke, and John.
Yes, I do know that. I mean, that's just like Megyn Kelly
man.
arguing that Jesus is white. Like,
No,
at the end of the day,
no.
Jesus can't be white because he's from the Middle East.
Right, but I'm just saying. So look, but you know when those names were assigned.
Well, yeah. But I'm sure, but at the same time, like, my name is David, but in Hebrew, my name is Daoud. So there's ways that their name, you see what I'm saying?
I understand the translation, and that's not the point I'm making. I'm saying that the people that wrote about it, right, were allegedly alive or somewhere between 1 and 2 generations away, between 30 and 50 years after Jesus died. Okay? So that's on there. But their books were never recorded and assembled into a new symbol until 300 AD. So the people that are writing about them didn't have much information for going over it.
But you have to, but it's verbal accounts passed down by generations, essentially.
And that's a good belief to believe.
I mean, but what I'm saying, so what you're saying is because 5 different people wrote a book that whatever they said in it and none of it can be true. That's essentially what you're saying.
No, not at all.
But you just said that one of the books was true.
I'm saying it couldn't be the book of God and that it's not the same author.
I mean, it couldn't be the same author, but the New Testament is the account of Jesus.
No, I'm talking about the books of each individual one. They are not a person that wrote, like, as the book reads of this is what I saw and what I did. They are multiple different people in each book that are writing it, okay?
Right.
So the script, so to take it as the account of God from multiple different people.
But it's not the account of God. The New Testament isn't the account of God. The New Testament is the account of Jesus. The Old Testament is
which
the
is a
account
part
of
of
God.
the Trinity, right? One of the 3, Holy Spirit, which is what you get when you accept Christ, is the part that comes into you, Jesus and God. Saying I use them interchangeably, and I apologize. Yes, it could be Jesus, but I meant Jesus is God.
I mean,
same Christian belief, unless I'm talking about Muslim.
Jesus is the son of God because technically he's part human because he came from a woman. God is the Almighty being that created everything.
So pay no child support.
That's right. Nothing.
Yeah.
Cashed out.
No.
Nothing.
Yeah,
No.
took
and children heaven.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
All right,
No
well,
sign check or anything.
And as much as we love religion, but that is
we gotta top it.
It is a side thing that we're doing. Travis will have,
I love to go.
and it's an interesting, right? Because I've got my own viewpoints on it. I'm not nearly as smart as either one of y'all when it comes to the topic, but logically and common sense normally, rule my existence. But here's another point, getting back to, the original topic at hand, that I have conversations, and the majority of the conversations I had were in Texas, right? And for everyone regressing, going back to history, right, which I do believe there are certain individuals, and we've seen it now currently, people don't believe in science, don't believe in history, or choose to believe, the 400 years and, everything should be fine. Look, everyone else seemed to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and whatever, right? It's horrible thinking from country, old, white, and again, passed down from generation to generation.
And especially with the education part. The reason why they don't want it to be taught is because they figure if it's not taught, people will forget about it. Or if they change the way that it's worded of what happened.
Done in Texas.
Oh yeah, no, it's
in the history books in Texas in 2009 till 2012, it taught that that there wasn't a slave trade; it was a voluntary work program for indentured servants. But they were treated so well that they stayed.
See.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what they want you to believe. They don't want you to understand that, people were literally brought here by the thousands on boats, stacked like sardines in cans, away from their home and forced to work for hundreds of years. Like generations of their families had to work. Even with being sexually abused by their owners, bearing their children, and their children have to do the same work that they're doing. You see what I'm saying?
For sure.
They don't want that, but when you water that down, it kind of minimizes what happens. And that's what they want to do. They want to minimize what happens because they don't want you to look at them like, I think they're tired of people looking at them like, hey, like your family owned my family. Like they don't want that. So they figure
it's like Christians nowadays that,
here's a really dangerous slippery slope segue. I was just saying it's exactly it's my fighting of why I'm trying to fight against education for evolution versus creationism of watering it down, not doing whatever. Let's not go down that slope. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Okay, but if we fast forward to today, right, or in the last 3 generations, right, our buddy J.C. Lee in Texas, right, 3, UGK's mixtape DJ, whatever, this and that. Granted, he went in every cultural turn that a young black male in an area like that began selling drugs. I'm going to be a rap artist. I'm going to do whatever, right? Went through all this, realized at some point, had the the wherewithal to go, woo, maybe this isn't the right way to go. Now, his mother, I've met his mother. His mother is a wonderful human being. Cared and loved and did as much. Dad wasn't around, right? He's around now, sneak back, and whatever, but Papa was a Rolling Stone at best. So JC, at a point, decided, no, I got to get out of here, right? I need to leave this area, and I'm going to end up shot, in jail, whatever. So he moves to Dallas. That's where we meet him, right? Good dude, right? Had a good history behind him. Like anyone, if you've been grimy or you've been moving around on the streets and whatever, you can see that. Great dude, gets into sales, right? Natural assimilation into normal work instead of some of the other things. Has a kid, and the major point was, I don't want my son to grow up around this or without a father or whatever. So he quit everything he was doing, moved to Dallas. Worked very hard. One of the hardest working dudes I know, right? Worked really hard. Put his son in, and of course, this is funny. Even when I say it, I'm like, put him in a predominantly white school district, right? Put him there, right? His son, 4.0 student, yes sir, no sir, did whatever. I'm like, man, 3, I know you. I was like, how in the world did you have such a, like, he is probably the most well-adjusted,
I hate kids and I'd adopt them.
Yeah, no, Jace is a very, very good kid. Now, as every time we have the same conversation, right? We've been having it prior Bill Maher, prior Trump, and all the other dumb stuff, right? That I go, that's great, and you keep going back to historical, situations, which I understand, I get it, right? But anything that can be changed in one generation kind of takes away the overall, not to say it didn't happen, but the crutch to keep leaning back on it, right? I was like, Jason, if you didn't make that, now mind you, there's some cats on the east side that are growing up and whatever. And if they don't leave that community, you know as well as I do, right? Even the raggedy people I ran around with over here. We grew up in this area. Where were we? We were at Tireman and whatever, and we were going to see Larry, the dope man. We go get weed, come back out here. But anything that can be changed in one generation, I do not agree nor push the overall agenda of our system. It's broken. It's failed miserably in a million different ways. But the fact that if singularly, right, you make the decision to, I'm going to leave this alone, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And yes, it's a lot like Pursuit of Happiness, right? Will Smith, going and trying to do X, Y, and Z, right? If you take yourself from that situation, which we all know when we're in a bad situation, some people, obviously IQ levels and whatever, and culturally, whether or not you're willing to make that move, but to move out, provide a better life for, and it's not easy. It may be a one room, and we've all seen it, a one room apartment in a nice area. But you don't have to worry about your kid getting shot, getting robbed. I don't know if y'all watched the news earlier, 2 kids got shot over Air Jordans, right? It was on the news today. So by doing that, you take that. He completely changed his situation in one generation. Not to say that history and, a lot of like Dr. Wayne Dyer and Chopra and whatever, you never, it's very hard to steer a boat when you're looking at the wake, right, of the water that's coming out of the engine, right? You have to be looking ahead. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. I was raised by, in not the best situations, right? My dad could be listening to this, so, I don't want to give him a heart attack or whatever, seeing he had heart surgery or whatever. But my life wasn't wonderful, right? I joked with Eric, and I was like redheaded, freckled, whatever. I was ostracized by my own people, right? I was the most picked on. Richie Cunningham, Ralph Malph. I had girls that would break up with me that I would get them to talk them into dating me, and then their friends would be like, "Ooh, the redheaded boy, the orange boy? No, you can't do that," whatever, right? So not to say it's the same thing, but understanding, like, holy crap, I have no control over what I'm orange and got freckles or whatever, but other people will say, no, Judy, you can't mess with him. Go out with that, that gentleman or whatever. So in one generation, and that is even though our system is broken and it is horrible, and there are biases and there are so many things that are wrapped up into it. But it does come down to the singularity of one individual making a decision, changing, the overall life path for their bloodline, for their family, that I'm going to take, and, that it is available, right? Horror, maybe not as wonderful, and equality, we might as well forget about it. Equality ain't, is not coming anytime soon.
I mean, but you say that, but you also have to remember, too, like we said earlier, that the way the system is set up to arrest and put black men in jail. And when you get a felony, it makes it more difficult to get a job. So it's not that easy to just move your family out of a situation when the highest paying job you can get is $10 an hour.
That's right.
And so it's a lot of
No, I did trick CBS into giving me a job. I got a felony. I'm telling you, if you read my rap sheet and didn't put my picture next to it, Jake ain't a good dude.
But there's more. You as a white male with a record, there's more of a chance that you'll get a job over a black male with no record. And that's the type of.
I don't think.
No, it's actually.
We got the statistics. That's good.
Let's look at the statistics.
Well, and by no means was that like slighting the fact of whatever, right? But I also could have given up and went, well, I'm not. This is my deal. I guess I'm gonna do whatever. Y'all met me at probably one of my lowest times. I was getting paid $10 an hour working for the Greeks. Just because I needed to pay my bills. I didn't have fuck off money. I didn't have whatever. I was just going, okay, I'm going to do this. And then crazy Wes Wyatt popped in and went, wow, you got a little something. You know what? They didn't ask, And no, mind you, have I gotten extremely lucky? Yes. Does the color of my skin play a role into that? I would be stupid or remiss to say that it didn't. But I think there is some personal accountability in the singular nature of one individual. I mean, I graduated high school living with 4 friends in their basements on the couches because I was kicked out of school. I easily could have, no, I'm not going to do whatever, because even being in a nice white community, I was the poorest, homeless, whatever, and if it wasn't for the overall generosity of others, yeah, there's no telling. I easily could have, wound up.
Well, and look, don't let that rabbit hole get down. I'll look into it. But look,
No, I got it right here.
the study.
It's about 3% difference. 17% of white males with a criminal record got callbacks for interviews, and 14% of black males with no criminal record got called for interviews. So it's about 3% difference.
It's kind of but you got to see the study. Because whenever you're doing that, if you're looking at independent places, sure, but there are so many places that automatically will not hire you for a felony.
I know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter if you're white or black, whatever. Those will do it. And so this study may be places that aren't automatic rejection ones. I was talking about the totality of Best Buy, Walmart, whatever. That shit you automatically can't do it. But yes, it's probably you can say it's harder for a black guy to get a job.
Even at my job, you can't work where I work if you have a felony. If you have any type of criminal record, you can't.
So
and
I guess it's probably maybe a thing of phrase. Maybe it's harder for a black man to get a job than a white man with a criminal record. Maybe that would be an associated one. But saying it's hard that less jobs are available.
Well, no, I'm not saying less jobs. No, but it's more difficult.
Yes, it's more difficult.
But that's also because of the system
and here's the part that I get irritated with it, and this is the point I made before we made the long religious segue of just trying to address a single person's concern does nothing. If you want to make a difference, you have to go to a person of influence, a person that has that kind of speaks on behalf of more people. You're getting everyone under them kind of if you do it. So if you got someone that makes policy, right, that affects everybody.
Well, but also the issue is, but see, it goes back to what we were saying about recognizing that there's an issue. Sure. Because there's a large population of white people who feel that black people shouldn't be complaining and that we're the ones being attacked and we're about to be outnumbered. And that's how you essentially end up with somebody like Donald Trump, because you have a lot of people scared that the world is changing and the world is becoming more multicultural, and they don't like that. They don't like the fact that
I've had conversations with
They don't like the fact that you have all these Arabs moving here, and I don't like the fact that black people are moving out the city and they're coming out to Canton, and I don't like that. when in actuality, that's just the way of the world. As the population starts to increase, there's going to be more and more and more people. And quite frankly, black people love having kids, so they be having 4 or 5 of them. So we skyrocketed. So it's just fact.
And this is maybe what we can segue if we want to have a second one that we'll do religion, and I'll shove it after this, because I actually blame religion for all of those things. But that's fine, and I have a very good case for it.
I might already know
watering down the education thing, whatever. But well, here's the problem with it: is I don't see anything. And look, again, you're going. Try and convince this guy. Look, if you're out to convince Hillbilly Rick, have fun with it. I would say that's a waste of time. Get people together and talk to people that make legislation, because right now there are things that are not being talked about on the general topic that we've just discussed of the drug war being a problem, and I don't see anyone coming out and picking at that. We're all talking about specific instances and emotional.
But a big part of that is because the Republican Party isn't the party of let's fix the criminal justice system. They're the party of lock their ass up.
They're the ones that are
they wanted to lock Hillary Clinton up without a trial. They would lock her up automatically. Like, don't even send her to court or nothing. So that's the way they feel. The Democrats, which the past 8 years, like under Obama, they made a lot of changes because they understand that a lot of the times you have people who have mental health issues that are out here doing
which is a horrible thing.
And instead of treating their mental health issues, you just throw them in jail and say, okay, get better. But you're not treating their heads.
Symptoms, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So now we made a shift, and that's why this past election it was so important, regardless of whether you liked Hillary. Me personally, I really didn't like Hillary. I voted for Hillary because I understood that Hillary was about criminal justice reform. Hillary was about doing stuff for community policing and neighborhoods.
She was a mentally stable human being. Was really just mine.
And Donald Trump was, there's all this violence in Chicago, let's send the National Guard. Like, that's not what you need to do. You don't send violence to violence, because all you're going to do is make an explosion.
Right.
It's just going to explode. Yeah. Just like when you see all these protests after kids get killed by cops, and the first thing they do is send 150 SWAT guys out there with AKs and AR-15s. Like, yeah, the crowd is going to get unruly because they're looking at you like, why are you out here with that? We're just out here, protesting. So that's what they escalate the situation because they want, it to seem like it's just volatile situation. But that's what happens when you come out there and start shooting rubber bullets at people and stuff like that. So
we almost drove to South Dakota, man.
Yeah,
we literally had the shop set up to try and run as much on autopilot as they can.
Just to lay eyes on it, right? Mm-hmm. Because in this world today with Facebook and, I see the memes about, so this or, stuff on Saturday Night Live or whatever, which I started watching again, which is very good programming. I don't know. I mean, granted, they're not all the household names and there's no Eddie Murphys and whatever anymore, but, the Chris Farleys of the world, but they are putting some quality, shenanigans out there.
They got a lot of stuff to work with now.
But now in this world that we're living in, that that's horrible and unlike sad face, teardrop, whatever, and then go back about your normal, your normal life. I felt as passionate about. I've studied a lot of American Indian philosophy. I've read into it as much as humanly possible, and what was happening at that point, and for big commerce and oil and our national interest and whatever. Granted, looking at it 100% with it being here in the land and what was already passed through, and I waited on Obama for a long time. Put a halt to this, right? You see. The shame is we see so much injustice. It was enough for me to get in my vehicle and go, I want to drive out there. Literally had enough time to drive out there, look around, do whatever, talk to as many people, pull in as much information as you could, probably stay there that evening, hop in the car and drive back. Because what am I going to do? Stand out there and pick it and get hit by rubber bullets or whatever? I'm not a nice person. If somebody got to pushing and shoving or whatever, I'd probably get beat with a machine gun. Mm-hmm. But to lay eyes on it, and it felt enough. I don't know how many people felt as passionate about getting in their vehicle and driving out there, right? Or had the availability to. A lot of people. Yeah. But...
And I mean, Obama, I think, was waiting to see what Congress was going to do. And clearly, they're all for big oil. They don't care what they do. But I think that this goes into what we were talking about being atheists, being able to live your life. These are the people who were here before anybody else got here. And as a promise to them, you said, okay, we did you wrong. We're giving you this land.
South and now, Dakota and Oklahoma.
Right. And now they're saying, oh, okay, well, this big company over here wants to pay us millions of dollars for them to put this pipe with sending crude oil through here.
They're paying. They're going to help me get reelected.
Essentially. So, and they're like, so we know we gave it to you, but now we got to take it back. And I think Obama finally realized, this isn't good, and the way that they're going out here just taking it, we got to stop it.
And he did at the very end.
He had as much money as Trump in that same pipeline, and that's why he didn't make a move until it actually started to get some national coverage. They were muting it out for a long time,
and they've even said that there's already been leaks in the pipeline.
Oh yeah.
So the whole situation. At the end of the day, money rules this country, and the more money you have, the more power you have. And they really did that when they started letting these super PACs and all these other groups have unlimited amounts of money and making these ghost donations that you don't know where they're coming from.
Donations you don't even see where it's coming.
And let's not even talk about being in the legal system, right?
Oh yeah.
I had to put $35,000 towards something or whatever, and got a much better deal. Still wasn't pleasant, but compared to an individual, So I think as far as this topic goes, this can probably go on forever and ever because. Again, the interpersonal psychology of an individual that feels a certain way, emotionally, culturally. It's good to have the conversation because who knows, at some point there may be an aha moment that looks like something out of a Fantastic Four and shoots up into the sky. And
I got that moment. One of the main points I was trying to make across the whole entire thing about trying to argue with influence the rest of them, just like and again, not intentionally, but the God did it claim is unchallengeable. Like, that's the answer, so you just stop searching. Like, if I was to say, like, God put that there, you don't, like, grab soil, like, okay, let me see it, right? So when you say this is, like, he's racist, that does the same thing. That stops it. You assume that that's the cause, as if there's not things that cause that, and that's why I hate it whenever that tag gets on, because then you're going, okay, now we can't even have the conversation anymore, because you're just, he's racist, that's the problem, can't fix it. It's the same thing of the victim card, essentially. So if we look at police reports of their current training right now, you may have known something about it. There's something like 32% more likely to shoot a black guy with the phone than a white guy with the phone thinking it's a gun. But they do this training, and they've got really sophisticated tests that are going across the nation right now, and they're training different police departments. And there's not a difference between the black cops and the white cops' likelihood of pulling it. But what they are finding out is that with an hour a week, after about 2 or 3 months, that percentage of difference that drops from, mistaking, because they have a person pipe up that's either white or black, and they either have a gun or a phone, right? And you have 1 second to decide if you don't, make a decision at that point, shoot or not shoot, then you lose, right? So it's a quick time thing. And the faster it goes, the more likely you are to assume that the black guy had a gun. Even with somebody, they've done the same test with smiling faces or angry. Is he white? Is he angry or whatever? And it's across the board. The fact that we have training that limits and lessens this and is already out there, but it's not federally funded. It's small science groups that are doing this, small social sciences. Why, again, if you want to talk about solving the problems, look, that is something right now in our grasp that we can solve in the next 6 months.
Well,
just through training. Yes, they're still going to have the racist asshole.
No, and I agree. But the reason that they're not going to do it is because the people who are in control feel that they don't need to be retrained, that they're doing a great job, that our police are out here doing a great job and doing the best job in the world.
Dallas is a very, very Republican city. We have one of the best police forces, and it's because of the funding that goes into that area.
Yeah.
It just sucks because Detroit just happens to be the most corrupt place on earth, so no matter where you put the money, it's maybe not anymore. But
I'll say this, Detroit police aren't that bad.
Actually, Dallas was stealing. Remember, Big Country and a few other of them that they were getting recruited. Right? If you spent 1 to 1.5 years in Detroit, Dallas was, and it was a big thing on the news that hey, Dallas, knock it off. Right? Why are you stealing all? And they said that you saw more and dealt with more in that short period of time that Dallas was paying them, instead of the 28 to 32,000, whatever it was back then, that much higher pay rate, and in Dallas, right? Which we've all seen First 48, right? It's not the happiest place on earth, but compared to Detroit, it was something.
Well, and but see, the other thing, and that's why I think it makes it so much better in Detroit, because if you're not out here doing some dumb shit, you're okay.
Right. Yeah.
Like, they're not going to mess with you. They're cool. There's places where these cops don't have anything better to do with their time than to harass you. And if you look funny, if you're the wrong color,
which that is kudos I will give to Detroit police, that if you're not in that, and even when things going back 10, 15 years, we've had police officers tell us, you pull up to a light, like, I used to work in the warehouse district down off Woodbridge and St. Aubin. Yeah. They were like, look, man, I think it was the 1st or 3rd precinct guys or whatever that were down in the warehouse district. And they were like, look, when you're cutting out of here and you hit, stop at a red light, look both ways and go on through. Just go ahead and, get to where you're going. If I pull up and I was like, are you seriously telling me to run a red light or whatever? He was like, no. You pull up, look both ways and whatever. I don't care if I'm sitting across the other, go ahead and cut through. Now, ironically, this is a little blast from the past, and I do like having both of y'all in here because we did spend a lot of interesting time in the city, back at a few bars and restaurants, in 2007, 2008. Our police officers that ran there, the one that actually gave me his card and went, don't call 911, call me personally. Even if I'm not on duty, I will call and dispatch somebody or get somebody in the area. I'm standing in here. Gentleman walks in. Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's happening? We talk, get his vapor, whatever. Probably the friendliest, happiest individual I've met in a while. I was like, man, I would have guessed school teacher or principal or something along those lines, right? Because I do discounts for, police, firefighter, UAW, because I'm an ex-UAW guy. So I give that 10% for first responders, police, and whatever. So I asked before I'm doing the transaction. First time I ever met the gentleman, he was like, I'm Detroit PD. I was like, no kidding. man, do I have a story for you? Go figure, Jake would come up with story time, right? So I was like, man, I used to manage this place and whatever down on Woodbridge or on Grand River and Griswold and this, and this. And he was like, oh, no kidding. And I mentioned the officer's name. Mm-hmm. He went, he sits at the same desk with me. He was like, yeah, he was like so-and-so, and I had forgotten his first name. So when he mentioned it, I was like, no kidding, yeah, because I was used to call him by his last. And I was like, they're in domestic violence or whatever. They're both detectives now, right? So I was like, no kidding. We had a cool talk. He, mentioned, I went, yeah, and I go, what was that Big Country? We used to call him Big Country. He was like, Big Country. I was like, yeah, Dallas tried to steal him, right? I go, believe it or not, he had jumped on, come through and had a little bit too much fun. And when he, and I was like, oh no. And he was like, are you kidding me, right? So we get into that story. He was like, no, he's still here. He's working in whatever. And I was like, holy crap, right? Now, I don't know how great, where I'm not the most squeaky clean individual on the planet, but boy, I would like to put together like a reunion show for, those guys, because they were good, they were good dudes. They helped me out of a lot of binds where I had a gentleman say he was going to go pop the trunk, and I guess kind of a shout out to Detroit PD. And if you don't work, live, and really ingrained in that area, not many people would know the officers in the way that we did, and they would come through some of our bars and restaurants, on duty, off duty, and that was kind of bizarre, right? So sitting here in Canton, Michigan, run into a gentleman who sits at the desk. I gave him my card. I was like, see if that name rings a bell. And he was like, he came in a couple weeks later, and he was like, he knows you. He said this, and whatever. And he said to say what's up. And I was like, no offense. I hope I don't cross y'all's path unless you need vapor and you're trying to quit smoking. Mm-hmm. But other than that, tell him thank you, because, he made me a little bit safer in the time that I was down there. But we are going to go ahead and take a break for a minute. We're going to get into the cafe. We're going to stay on First Amendment, what is okay to say, corporate entities, hiring and firing, what's wrong, what's not. Again, I think we can touch on what we talked about. It's an ongoing situation. Hopefully, maybe we'll do a retouch after the Ice Cube Bill Maher, because I have a feeling that's going to be pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. But I do want to thank you, Dave, Ian, Travis, for sneaking in late, Taz for walking around so we can hear your nails. This is the Bachelor Pad. We'll be right back.
Going from having the first black president, like there's kids now who haven't seen that Donald Trump is the first white president they've ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you have these kids that are growing up in a different time. And I think that what you're going to see in the next at least 10, 15 years is that the kids that grew up with this multicultural idea of how America should be are going to get older. And they're going to start getting more power. Because really the people who you find are doing the most racist shit are the old guard that have been holding on. They're not going to be around 10, 15 years from now.
Right.
And that's when you're going to start to see stuff really shift.
And I've made the point many different times that, look, the average person in power right now is a 65-year-old white man, right? Mm-hmm. They were raised by people that were spraying blacks on their way to school. Right? That's who taught them their moral compass.
Shit, they were out there spraying.
They were out there spraying. Yeah, they're 65. Yeah, they were out there spraying.
Hey, boy, come here. You want
they may have been too young to be 60. But you know what I mean? Like, look at what they learned. But again, as a culture, why is this not being brought up of, hey, look, expose it? Because of how much friction racial shit gets, if we can keep it off of an individual and stop falling into these little rabbit holes of, I think this is fair, and then some stupid white guy will go, that's not that way at all, and then you'll go, yes it is, let me tell you personal stories, and we're off the rabbit hole. It's just another person's account of what this one person thinks. You have to discuss it systematically and have solutions in mind. You have to have a solution in mind for the conversation.
But in order to have a conversation, there's got to be two sides. And that's what the problem is. You have one side who's saying, hey, there's a problem. The other side is like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, essentially. But again, so here's my remedy, or here's my suggestion of what I'm getting at, that I think would make it better. So instead of doing that, wouldn't it make more sense to find out at least one of the little local politicians, one of your local representatives that represent a zip code, right? Find the way that they voted on something in a recent racially, charged device, And if they do it, go to the town hall meeting. Don't send them a fucking thing. Go to the town hall meeting. Put your shit on Facebook Live. Have you and 10 other people. Now you're in front of 3,000 people from that district. I'm willing to bet that black people have more black people on their Facebook pages than white people do on average. You're going to do it whatever. So you can really spread a grassroots, because it's not, look, what's happening nationally is not what's fucking up your back and neighborhood.
No,
your neighborhood.
but you have to realize too that in the majority of places where you have a large black population, usually you have the same people running stuff in that area. There's a couple of exceptions, like in Ferguson, where you had a community that was 60% black and every person that ran the city was white.
Right.
But they also found ways to get around it, and it goes back to having felonies. They were pulling people over just to fund the police department and fund their city. So when you're pulling people over, you're getting 3-4 tickets at a time, which means you owe $400 or $500. You don't have that. You don't show up to court. You got a warrant and you got a felony. So now you can't vote.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's
and look, and there is this,
but I'll say this: you have to make somebody realize that they have a dog in the fight to care. Because if they can separate themselves from what's happening, then they're not going to care about it. Because to them, it's that happens over there.
And that's a good strategy.
And it's really crazy when you hear about children dying and stuff like that, and they're just able to tune that out.
But what do they pay attention to?
Stuff
what do the Republicans pay attention to?
Money.
Money, right? So look, if we want to have a conversation and we want to bring them into interest, they don't care because they're not black, right? So we're not going to win that road. Okay? So let's talk about it socioeconomically. How much does it cost to put a person in jail for a day? It costs around $60 on the national average, okay? So right now, we've got black people being arrested, putting in jail for 10 years for a marijuana charge. Oh, yeah. You take $60 a day times 365 days for 10 years, you got 3,650 days. At $60 a day, you're looking at about $180,000, I think, my math may be off, but around $180,000 by the time that person gets out for smoking weed. Look at how much welfare went into the state, because it came out of the state money and went to a private prison.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. The whole reason that is because the prisons are privatized and their friends have all the contracts for them, so they're getting paid.
But the white people that elect those people are very concerned about that 1.5% of our economy that we spend on welfare and fucking disability. They seem to be very upset about that. So drawing that same connection of, okay, cool, look in that realm. You don't like the, $1.2 billion a year spent on disability, welfare, unemployment, right? Here's the prison thing that we're going for that's costing you white people, you're paying for this.
But to them, that is a necessity. You have to lock up these evil people.
For marijuana?
These evil people with
72%
with the devil's weed. You gotta lock them up. But when to them that's a necessity. But they have this idea that everybody that's on welfare is sitting at home on their ass, not doing shit, just collecting a check and raising kids. So to them, I'm not going to pay for that. Not realizing that really there's a lot more people who are out here working and really trying to make ends meet.
Even to take that same parallel, just the money side of it, I don't think anyone would assume that, that anyone on welfare is going to get $360,000 worth of welfare in a 10-year period, right? So, but bringing that up and going, cool, you're concerned about this, look at the bigger picture. That is still a part of a systemic problem.
Yeah, but what the problem is, the people who make the laws tell you, well, we
elect them.
No, but
we elect them.
I'll give you a perfect example with the Republican Health Care Act. The whole argument was, well, it's going to kick 23 million people off, but those people have the choice. If they want to have health care, they can get it. If they don't want to have it, then they don't get it. Like, don't you think that those 23 million people who have health care want their health care? They're not getting it just because you're forcing them to. They're getting it because they need health care. So what you're saying is basically what the argument is, I'm gonna make an argument for this over here, so you don't pay attention to what's happening right here. Yeah. It's just deflecting what you're focusing.
And that's why recognizing emotional appeals when someone's trying to make an argument point, to just let it go and go, cool, you seem to be upset by it. That has nothing to do with the rest of the world, right? So let's talk about what affects the rest of the world, because it's the only way you can take a big picture and make it work. And you figure out a solution for the big picture, and then you start working on it locally.
And one thing we do in here, right? The majority of people that come in are youngsters, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone, and it's the American Idol, American Idol / The Voice theory and concept. Everyone talking about the presidential race, and I was like, who makes your laws other than, Trump just signing executive orders like he's going crazy? But in general, I was like, so do you vote in your midterm elections? Do you know who your senator, your congressperson is for this district?
No,
I haven't had one, right? So I think the collective consciousness needs to be.
And that was my point. It's like going to the town hall. You do it. How many other people see that you can actually talk to this asshole? He's going to be right here 4 weeks from today at this fucking building.
And the community activist side of it, right? Everyone bashed Obama for community activism, whatever. What I think all of us, obviously, I saw the stress and whatever that last year put you under, right? Even though I didn't talk to you during that whole time because I didn't. You didn't seem like you wanted to chat, but through that. Like I don't know what happened in our, in whatever classes are being taught in school and whatever, but the millennials really want to grasp some power. Like they feel that they want to be heard and whatever, but in a representative government, right? Who is representing who is representing your interest, right? And they don't know. And if in this day and age, if we created a Facebook for, Senator Joe Schmo, right? And literally a Facebook, now I don't know where the money necessarily would come from or a bunch of people being administrators on it, but doing a little fact checking, how we voted on this, how we voted on that, did X, Y, and Z. And through social media, right? Because as much as everyone bags on it and whatever, it can be used for good. The accountability of having that on there, that here is your state rep, Canton, Michigan. Here is, between Canton, Westland, whatever. This is the individual that does X, Y, and Z. He is not voting for, whatever. Bringing him to talking points or, a town hall or even coming out to speak to whomever and holding them accountable. And if they don't, and this is the Donald Trump theory or the Obama theory, right? Taking one of the youngest individuals to ever run for that office, who, he was a 1 or 2 term, senator. We don't think they're qualified or whatever, minus law degree and everything else. Or this Yahoo Trump, right? That we could take any individual that has the ability to listen to its constituents and vote accordingly, right? Which I always look at, do the reverse math, right? Look at the big problem, look at everything. And if everyone did that and started another little coalition, everyone likes a tag and a group and a name and whatever, right?
Tribalism.
Call it whatever you do, but if it happened, here in Southeast Lower Michigan to whatever, and granted, you're going to get people up in the northern part of the state that are going to be Jethro and his people voting their way, but at least holding your representatives accountable. And if they don't, in that midterm election, you vote that individual out, and the majority of the masses aren't going to pay attention. Right? It's going to be the people that are putting the information out there.
Less than 10% of the population votes on midterms, right? So every person you can convince to go and vote locally for their own interest is an offset of 10 to 1 on the gerrymandering, because they're expecting 1 out of 10 to show up. You show up one of those that didn't, that offsets 10.
Yeah.
So you can do it neighborhood by...
I vote midterms. I grew up in a house where I couldn't come home if I didn't go vote. So I had to stay home.
But most people don't, and this is the time where...
But the same thing is, most people can look up and see exactly how people were voting. I will say this. After Trump got elected, when I think that night after that happened, when it sunk into people that he really won...
It took me like 5 hours, man.
I turned the TV off and went to sleep. Like, I saw what was coming. I turned the TV off. I was like, maybe I'll wake up in the morning or something.
It was a fluke. They fucked up.
But once he got elected, I think that lit the fire under everybody's ass to get up and do something. Because if you notice, when they first went to pass health care and said 24 million people were going to lose their health care, those town halls were packed to the point that Republicans didn't want to show up.
And then were spewing their propaganda and getting yelled at by...
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of Republicans feel that they won, that they just outright won. For one, they didn't win the popular vote. For two, they had the help of Russia at every corner.
But I still don't believe that even after
circumstances apply. Who cares what happens? They're the ones making it out.
But I still don't believe people will get out in masses. Like, you remember Rock the Vote, right?
Yeah.
P. Diddy, everyone, right?
But
Get the youth. I still don't think, like, that's what kills me, right? Get out for the popular vote on the presidency. What about our midterms? Where is the proper motivation to people who write laws and can actually influence?
I think before they didn't see the importance of that. I think now that they've seen what Congress has been doing, and on top of the fact that Trump is in there, it's pushing them even more. That you're going to see probably a record turnout for midterms next year.
I'm glad that you have faith in humanity to that level.
I do. I'll say this: I didn't think that Barack Obama would be president. I was wrong. I didn't think Donald Trump would be president. I was wrong. So I might be wrong on this one too, but I'm hoping that I'm not wrong.
And I hope a lot, but see, I deal with the public every day, right? Mm-hmm. This is a weird thing that I have, and part of like doing this, right? It turns a profit, it does whatever. But sociologically, being able to get into people's heads and why and how, and the one unresounding fact that I see every day is people want to be told what to do, how to do. CBD, those chill gummies, right? Mm-hmm. We all know CBD, THC, and whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I get it that some people won't, but I said, hey, what's that chill gummies? What is that CBD? What's that? Mm-hmm. And I went, you're carrying a supercomputer in your pocket. I was like, not to be a dick, sir, but Google health benefits of CBD, because I'm not going to tell you everything about it and sell you and influence you in a way if you didn't know anything about it walking in. But if you think that, having, an anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, cancer, the science is there, you can delve deeper into it. And if you think this is something, well, no, why don't you just tell me about it? I was like, so you health benefits of CBD, like those 12, those 12 words or whatever, you're not going to type out to develop your own.
That's how Donald Trump won.
Exactly.
But
I don't see any change.
But they believed everything that he said. I think
it's the echo chamber of social media.
But see, my big concern is the millennials that are liberal or not even liberal, right? I think it's time for a third party, right? It is ridiculous that two people, we could have polar opposite opinions on X, Y, and Z, and it's not going to change anything. Well, the third person.
I'm going to say this. Trump did essentially the same thing that Obama did. Trump went off emotion. The difference is Obama's emotion was hope, was that we're going to make this a better country than what it is.
And whatever, right.
Trump's emotion was anger.
Hate.
Was these people are taking our jobs. It's the Mexicans' fault. It's it's ISIS's fault, and it's the Muslim faith's fault. It's the African Americans in Chicago killing each other. It's everybody else's fault.
You don't feel safe. It's the Bush, like how Bush used the fear to get reelected. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted Bush in a second term, but the fear mongering that went out that, we can see it. Right, but the problem is, I think, for no better term or ability to dig through what to call it exactly, a little bit more enlightened. Right, You pay attention. Lord knows you're socially active as could be. Right, saw that all last year. He knows more about you from last year when boom, 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 and I was like, man, I know I want to chime in and whatever. I was like, I can't, but I looked at you and I could see the like Charlie Brown and Linus, the squiggles over your head. But it's weird. I try and educate every young person in here on the baseline of, who writes laws, what you should be concerned about. I try and have talking points. We get people that walk in to get a coil and a bottle of Chubby and sit here for 15 to 20 minutes. Now, sometimes we go dick and fart joke humor, and other times it's very topical, right? Last year was, police and, violence and Black Lives Matter and whatever, and it will be, dude, we get the weirdest melting pot. I got a Muslim dude who goes to U of M. I got, a black dude who's rapping and trying to produce music and just moved from the city out here. I've got, 3 random white kids who are high as shit, right? But we get them all talking, right? And it's interesting. But I do think, like, even having think of the sensationalism of you're fired, right? The Donald Trump, The Apprentice thing. Dude, I swear to God, if nobody does it by the time midterm elections or whatever roll around with this and where our camera should be, so y'all can see who we're talking to right now, that, you know, either here or at a different facility, having the green screen behind and whatever, and literally, I will do it, right? I will, you know, Travis, obviously, he doesn't sleep, man. He's weird, if y'all can't tell by looking at him, but he will sit and pull up every ounce of data and this and that on this senator for this area, how he voted, how he did X, Y, and Z, create a Facebook page, talk to the 50 people that come, you know, 30 to 50 people that come in between here or Garden City, talk to them, do whatever, spread it, whatever, even if it's got a splinter cell out from that, you know, from that point. And look, we believe that this individual should be fired. He's not working in our best interest. Okay, Detroit, you know, L2 Section 3, gerrymandering of epic proportion. Whoever, that is horrible. You need to do whatever. And we can't get the days, this is what I love, going out knocking on doors or leaflets or whatever, right? Like Jehovah's Witness got to step up their game. Because they keep coming by fucking with me at noon on a Sunday or whatever. I went out Saturday night. I got, you know, a harlot, you know, laying in the bed or whatever. I'd love to, you can go ahead and talk to me about what you want to.
1,500 and shit.
I would appreciate, you know, maybe you did it at like 6 in the evening. Come on in, I'll invite you in, whatever. I'm going to be in my boxers. You can be a little creeped out. But with social media, and for as much like I literally was like, I need to get away from Facebook. Like they're controlling my mind and whatever. And there's, you know, I was getting angered like, along the same terms as you over different things. Because generalized stupidity, which a lot of it was yours too, with how do you not see this, people? But somebody's got to take that, and it would be great if there was a figurehead. But one thing we've learned from YouTube, podcasting, and whatever, Bushy or whatever, the guy who reviews horrible video games or whatever, and I was forced to watch like 6 times, and I like it, right? That dude has more followers and is making more money. That dude's probably driving around in a McLaren right now. It can be ordinary people that have to take an extraordinary step to do something. And I think this needs to be done. And the only time I actually do stuff is when I get frustrated enough that I don't see anyone else doing it. I'd be more than happy to hand the torch over to a 22-year-old because ain't nobody want to hear it from me, right? Let's go ahead and put it in a 22-year-old, at least one that's got some chops, right? That can do. I'll videotape it. I'll have the studio set up. I'll have, you know, we'll give them the discernible data. Just pass along the message. And if that began to go, right, there's no quick fix. That's why at the end of the day, all this stuff I'm saying, I also don't care because I only got a certain time left on this planet. We all talked about what I did earlier today before I came here, right? I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, right? I didn't have children. This place could blow up on my 68th birthday and I happen to die at noon. This whole thing could just whoo and just scoot out into, you know, far out outer space, run into the sun. I don't care. I'm on a giant rock hurling through infinite space, held down to the ground by gravity. I've got a certain amount of time to do here. I'd like to do good. I think I do good by accident. You know, my buddy pointed it out. He was like, you do care and you do whatever. But at the same token, I also don't care. I just happen to, I try and be nice and I try and do good things. But at the end of the day, I care about my dogs. I care about what food I'm putting on my table and what young lady I'm going to chase around later, right? Because the end game for me, I would like to help humanity, and I think I do it on a one-by-one. But I also think that there's something in that magic, you know, in that magic information box that could be done properly to motivate on the sensationalism backed by proper science, statistics, and data that we could control. Because when he said it earlier, he was like, no, we vote them in. We are the ones who put them in power. They're not in power. So
we don't work for them.
We don't work for them. We put that individual. So if we could put them there, we ought to have, just like Bill Maher, he should be fired, or Kathy Griffin, we've had enough of her, she's done. Look at that power done in larger scale. If we take the, you know, call it the peasant social power, all of us with our sticks and the little fire lanterns and whatever, you look back at the old, you know, in the Dark Ages, hey, the king and queen sitting up, hey, you know, after a while, they will rush that gate and they will, you know, no pun intended, they will behead you, right?
I mean, but that's another thing. I personally didn't see anything wrong with what Kathy Griffin did because it's First Amendment. And to me, it's funny and really hypocritical that the main people who talk about not being politically correct are the first people to get offended. Like, it doesn't make sense that you can't have it
that's
both
why
ways.
I don't care about bullying. That's why I don't, because it hangs you up on the issues you're not going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very specific quote from the late Christopher Hitchens that I would like to share on this because it's very. All right, I got you, old man. Because it has a lot to do with censorship. I really wish I would have given anything. I don't know what to sacrifice. If there was a God to sacrifice, I would have given anything for him to have just been alive for the first 100 days of Trump's presidency. Just because he's been the biggest outspoken opponent of the Clintons forever, and I'm 100% sure that he would have voted Hillary and explained exactly why and done whatever. But just some of these things. So when we're talking about all this, he was a great proponent of the First Amendment. He offended absolutely everyone. So here's what he said that I was like, man, I fucking wish he was alive for this. He said, if one was in favor of censorship in principle, platonically, say we wish it could be done, obscenity could be avoided, offense could be avoided, who's going to get that job? Do you know anyone? There will never be a human being born that is going to be qualified for that job. No man is good enough to be another man's master in that way. And I think that's a very clear message, because who gets the job to decide what we can and can't say? That's not a job for anyone. We all have the right to say whatever we want, and that's what free speech works. You're going to hear shit you don't like, but you're also allowed to say shit without being condemned by it. And it's not, and this, the First Amendment is for the government, right? There's no rules about what public sponsors and all that shit can do. That's our, whatever we decided on it, the civil street walker, whatever, militia. But, to me, it's a mute point. I can't understand it in any other way. Oh my God, again, goes to offensive. It's just my default thing of, okay, and your argument is, that's not a reason, you know? I told someone, I'm going to start freaking the fuck out every time someone uses the word offense. And I'm going to train myself to become offended to that word. And we'll see where the conversation goes. Like, did you just say that was did you use the O word? How dare you? I don't even know how to react. I am frozen in fear, shock, and anger right now because that word is the absolute worst word in the world to me. I want you to never use that word again.
I've just learned not to give a fuck.
Right. See, how weird is that one of the individuals that I knew and saw that cared more, like a year and a half ago, that there's that duality that you can only care so much and push so much out. At the end result, when you get to the end of the conversation, you go, cool, so what's up, man? You guys want to go grab a bite to eat? You know what I mean? Like, no, because it rolls back to, because if not, you will go insane. Mm-hmm. Like, because if you don't turn it off, it will continue to roll, and then you have to look, what is our goal here, right? Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Accepts what it is. It is our duty to be outraged and fucking angry every day that you see something happening that you don't agree with, that it shouldn't be. You should be outraged by it.
And you were talking about what happened last year. And with that situation, that was a situation that went on for a long time. And it went on for a long time to the point where I stopped. And when I stopped, it kept going. But for some reason, that morning when I woke up and I read that, it was just, some clicked like, no, I can't take this shit no more. And that's what happened. Because like I said, I hadn't said shit for months. But for some reason, that morning, it was just, you know how they say, yeah, you picked the right time? That was the right time. It was just the perfect storm that morning.
Well, and it was weird, too, because, in full disclosure, there were some things on there, right, where, like, look, if you're one of my white friends and you're voting for Trump or whatever, if you're one of my black friends and you're voting for Trump, we are not friends. Like, there is something intrinsically wrong with you and whatever. And to go on to that, what I tell people is, and to me, if you vote for Trump, you're overlooking all the bad and evil stuff that he did, and not even getting to where imagining what was going to happen in the future. Right? Nobody could have imagined it would be as bad as it is currently.
He's telling you exactly what he thinks. And what I tell people is this: if Louis Farrakhan got up there and had the answer to fix the economy, to make sure everybody had health care, to make sure to really put this country on track to make money, and then came out and said all white people are the devil. If we voted for them, if a black person voted for them, a white person will look at you like, yeah, you think all white people are the devil. And to me, when you have a person saying that Mexicans are rapists and killers and drug dealers, and that black people are going to kill you and they sell drugs and they need to be thrown in jail. And this group over here and Arabs are going to kill you because they're plotting to go and blow up everything because they all believe in ISIS. For one, there are people out there that really feel that way. But for two, for the parties that they're talking about, it looks like you're accepting that. Because to me, like, I understand there's stuff you can look past. Like, there's things that you can look past and you can say, you know what, I can live with that either way it goes. But some things, at some point, you have to draw the line. Mm-hmm. And it's funny to me because people will vote against their interest because something is good. So you have people who are lifelong auto workers. There are lifelong UAW people that voted for Trump who was completely against unions. So it's like either you're happy to be in a union and something that helped you live the life that you had, but you're voting for a person who wants to get rid of it.
Right, and you've got line item voters, right, that guns, religion, right? And religion, that's a tough one, right? But you've got your guns, you've got your religion, and they will vote on that regardless of and that's one of the biggest problems I find in religion.
But it goes back to emotion. Because at the end of the day, there's no law that they can pass that is going to ban guns in America. But when all it needs to take is somebody to say, oh, they're going to take your guns away. Like, at the end of the day, you can't own a fucking bazooka. So obviously there's some type of
selling us potato guns at gun shows.
But you're not getting a motherfucking.
That's a law that ought to be taken out. That's something I've pointed out. It's a potato gun for $1,200. Not that something. There's stuff that you can't get, that you legally aren't supposed to be able to get your hands on. So obviously, at some point, somebody said, "Okay, we have guns, but you can't have this, and this." So what difference does it make if they say you can't have these 5 guns and now it's 7? That's not taking your guns away. You still got hundreds of other guns that you can choose from. But what people hear is they're going to take my guns away. You can't take my guns away. They said that
the whole 8 years with Obama being in there or whatever, right? It's propaganda.
But people believe it. And just like one of the most troubling things about Trump is, if you notice, Trump always said, "Oh, people are saying," or "I heard from this," and it's never a fact. It's always some bullshit put behind. Oh, well, people are talking about this, so it's got to be true. Or people.
The dumbing down of America. We are not a smart populace. No. We are not a smart nation. No. We are not. We have some of the best and brightest, but when you look at the overall, and Travis can probably spew the exact numbers, whatever, it's disheartening. And that is exactly what happened and what transpired. It's
67 in world education right now. 67.
I can believe it.
People in Bahrain are getting better public education than in fucking Dallas, Detroit, LA.
People don't want to read. They only want to read it if it's 140 characters.
Well, and look, and there's a couple things that we've touched on that there are systematic problems with that are already being addressed right now. The very first thing that you've made the assertion that they're just ignoring these issues, when in reality of it, Facebook right now, because of the way that the bots are set, right? Because it goes after clicks. It doesn't go after what's validated or what's true. There's nothing to do with validation.
Yeah, no.
So, and what we know right now, that's why the news is the way it is. They don't go, "Hey, some lady kind of hurt her toe. A devastating story of a single mother in a Walmart," because we know that's what gets your attention. So it's been breeding this sensationalistic media that's been going on, because the people that, believe me, the people that like Trump, Facebook knows. Oh, yeah. Facebook's very full aware. You know what they're not going to show them? Realistic stories from the other side, because we read what outrages us and what makes us feel comfortable. So they read bogus stories that are not even true about the other party, and they read bullshit sensationalist headlines about their own. So they don't hear the other side of it. As soon as they do hear a reasonable argument, they go, they've already, everything let's give them benefit of the doubt, let's say they looked into 2 things. The 2 things they looked into turned out to be complete bullshit propaganda from the other side. So they went, yeah, that's bullshit propaganda, I don't get it, because people don't know how to validate information anymore.
No. The only good thing of all the horrible stuff that's going on with big media companies, right? You still work for one of the last, big ones, right?
Because they changed it's no longer the same process.
Yeah,
it has to be multiple verified before it gets in. So now that all the software, which is everything on Google too, it doesn't have to be factual to be on Google, it does whatever. But now, because of the election and how most of the people that are over these companies, even though they're all the rich people that are going to reap the benefits of it, every Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook. I don't know if I can't remember if Facebook's doing it or if the Google system's going to force Facebook to catch up. But the main leaders in our coding that run all the bots that give us all of our information are now changing it to do the fact validation for you. That false things will start getting stricken off. And once it shows to be false, it's been verified from X amount of sources. It no longer every post about it will get banned from Facebook. Links will be dropped on Google to page 6,000. Blah blah blah. Whatever. You have to start to search to find bad information.
And that is weird that it has to be curtailed in a manner.
But, and this is my point of the thing of look when you start assigning things and again the race they're racist and thinking this most likely they're in a bubble of they're in a whatever they call it the little can you shout on whatever echoes back they're in an echo chamber right of information and so part of that is the thing of actually getting the streets because even if you make a post right you make a post about Black Lives Matter it's the only people you may have 6,000 friends but the only people that are going to see it are people that have commented repetitively against Black Lives Matter and people that have gone above it. So people that are completely outraged by it, that think it's the stupidest thing or most anger, whatever, it's a hate group, it's the black KKK or some one of the idiots that'll say something like that. And then you've got people that do pay attention to it. You don't get accurate sides, from the other. Yeah. So it's this is where I thought before that I found out that everyone in the AI is reprogramming everything. I wanted to start getting involved. I'm trying to use the atheist tag for political reasons to have the British because there's an American atheist, right? That you have an open chair for Michigan State Director. Okay. And so using those sort of things to use the national channels to influence things in school. I think that logic should be taught in school. You should learn how to validate information. And as it pertains to the Bill Maher thing, right? A proposal I brought up for several different people. Of going, okay, cool. So it's not right for a white person to say it. It's either right for everyone to say it or no one to say it. Because if you're going to make the proposal that only a certain sect of people get a right, because that's essentially what we're talking about. If only certain people are allowed to use the word, you're opening up the grounds for different rules for different types of people. Given the corruption of this government, give that 20 years and see where that goes.
But there's already different rules for different types of people. Clearly. We talked about it earlier when a white kid with 2 grams of weed gets pulled over and gets told to go home, and a black kid with 2 grams of weed gets thrown in jail. But that's an individual characteristic. It's not a platform that's spoken by anyone of going that that's the way it should be. I don't think anyone, even the white parents, will not agree that that's the way it should be. No,
and we're making there's Jethro with the meth lab. We've already fuck Jethro, all right. But the average person the average person that you walked up to has still a normal conscience. If they're not completely fuming with racism, like, hey, is it right for a black person to get pulled over and get arrested for this? Another one. They may say that's not true, right? But the average person would believe that no, that's not right.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot more people than you would think. But it's because, like I said, it doesn't affect them. To them, it's out of sight, out of mind. They don't care what happens.
Or then you've got the third side that would I don't give a fuck what happens to either one of them. You shouldn't be walking around with an illegal substance. Keep your nose clean. You ain't got to worry about it, right? Then you've got that sect of people. Well, talking about how the bots and information is being, transmitted to us one way or another. The one thing that I did see because of the stupid Trump stuff and all the other stuff going around that. The UK deal, right? We all saw that Trump tweeted out a bunch of stuff, did whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, immediately, John Oliver, right? Because I do follow John Oliver stuff, right? That they were like, the UK is gripped in fear, and it's they were using a couple different words that I can't recall, and I don't have my information.
Paralyzed in fear. The Roman triangle is going to change society forever. We'll never
right.
recover.
And they're all this, and this. Everyone came out from the UK and other people and whatever, bashed whatever American, and it was American sensationalism from either the CNN world or whatever major, and they were like, no. Right? They went and they were like, hey, and they're interviewing people and doing whatever. And then even the British press was like, hey, America, knock it off. We're fine. We get it. Couple dudes with a van and a couple stabbings. We're cool. Stop saying this. And they literally came out and went, stop it. And whereas it used to be 90 days and they would go back and go, yeah, it was crazy how they did this and that, but it wasn't a thing. And now onto the weather, right?
Yeah. No.
But it's almost simultaneously that they we saw this, we sensationalized what was going on with them, and there was an immediate ping pong backlash where they went, no, It's not. Stop saying that. And I
Keep
think
your Trumpy decisions to yourself, you fucking idiot Americans.
Well, and I think for one, you know, for us, we have to, it's this necessity to have news at an instant, to know everything that's going on as fast as
you're
you
making
can.
up stuff. You're like me talking half the time. I just say words. I don't know. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like Ricky Bobby.
That's Fox News all day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they make up everything.
But there are some interesting things that are happening, you know, socially that are reflective of, you know, and even in the media, and, you know, I was sitting here in the fake news and all the, you know, whatever. I'm like, wait a minute. But then again, and here I hate to ever even take a sliver of our news media and what we're being fed. You know, it's sensationalized, right? What's going on here, what's going on there, poor reporting and whatever. I think there needs to be a reeling in of wait until you know everything. It doesn't have to just make up some stuff and then, you know, just throw it out there. And now that you have, you just stick with it and you run it for 23 hours on the...
Skepticism. You reserve a position until the evidence is in. You don't start speculating without the appropriate evidence. That leads to bad things.
Well, but the difference is with a lot of these, what they're calling the mainstream media. If they make a mistake, they come out and say it, and they also don't state opinion as fact. When you watch what's considered not the mainstream media, which would be Fox News, they
don't consider Fox.
I mean, they are considered.
They're not,
we know it's not truthful.
Yeah.
But it's considered the three: the Fox,
Yeah.
the CNN, and the NBC or whatever.
What Fox does is they take opinions and state opinions as facts to make people believe that what they think is really what it is. It's really, you know, the truth. And that's where you get into trouble, because you have so many people believing one person's opinion as the way things really are, and not realizing it's that
kind of like the
opinion.
Rush Limbaugh theory, right? That man, what he would say, and that crazy guy that everyone bashes on, that is like
Alex
Trump's,
Jones.
the guy where Trump gets all his
Alex
news from.
Jones.
I can't even.
Yeah.
So it's
And look, and that is a source for a lot of it going back retrograde from the Fox News viewers and whatever. But again, the problem of it is now is Facebook and Google are intertwined. They use the same. They plug in. So every search you've ever typed into Google, that's why if you look for something, you'll see it pop up as an ad in Facebook, right? And these are targeted towards like it's right now there's software that can predict where you will be at in 10 years from right now, almost spot on accurately. It's fucked up.
One of the things I can say is that I'm glad that a lot of the reporting that's being done, that's getting reported on, is coming from the print media. It's not coming from the internet and all that. It's coming from the print media straight over. And the fact that you have so many leaks lets you know that it's not a fake story. There's something there.
Yeah, multiple sources increases probability of being true.
And if you notice, every day it's worse and worse, the stuff that's coming out, which means that you have people that are seeing how bad this is, and before it can get put in a corner, put in a drawer somewhere and filed away, they're slowly letting it out. And in a couple months, I don't think we're going to have to deal with any of this. But as for right now...
Shit. What do you mean?
Oh, in a couple months, Trump will be gone.
Yeah, and then we got Pence.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Pence.
You and I are worried about Pence for very different reasons.
Just take him out, don't have his wife with him, and you're okay. Because he won't do nothing.
But your statement is true. We are living in some of the, and, you know, we're all around the, you know, same age except for him. He's like 12. But we're living in some very weird, bizarre times. The fact that the media is behaving differently, that everything that we used to know, that you remember terrestrial radio used to be the deal. It's a dying medium, right?
It is.
The fact that I can make, or we could make, in doing this, right, and doing it professionally, not like tonight, which Tyler screwed us off, and, you know, he didn't answer a text, and I grabbed all this stuff and had to make a pit stop before I got here. But actually getting your S together, right, that I could make more money doing this, or we could make more money doing this than we ever could working for that company, right? With true, proper opinion, whether agreeable or disagreeable, however you look at it, the fact that media is behaving differently, the fact that information is at a touch of a button, that politics are just something we've never even thought of. You remember how everyone, I don't know if you recall, but like 10, 12 years ago, everyone was saying, no, it's just like bell bottoms going out and coming back in, right? Everything. We're going to revert back to 50s like mentality, right? With just the way we hold ourselves, the way we behave and whatever, which is not happening, right? That shit has spun way to the left, and it is not like yo-yo coming back. Like the string is broken. This is on a weird outward trajectory that I don't think anyone can predict. If you would have asked me when I was doing radio, I came, to work at the bars after I got out of radio. I was butthurt, right? I was like, no, that's it. Stern leaving to go to Sirius, right? We all knew that wasn't necessarily going to be the platform, right? Who's going to pay that much for radio and do whatever? And but it's done well, right? It's done well. But looking at the shards that have come off with the YouTube, and this is what I like sociologically, being in here and dealing with millennials and dealing even with people that are our age that watch things differently. The fact that I, stream and I do everything else, I don't watch regular TV and news, right? I watch TV differently. I couldn't have, from the days of sitting and MASH was on Channel 50 and a new dance show and whatever, and come on, man, The Count. Everyone remembers The Count.
Everybody know The Count.
From all these things that we spent 20 some years, that it was just it. At 7:30, Three's Company was on. Chrissy's hot as get out, right? That it was just there. Jack Tripper's a trip, right? Anything to now, I don't turn on TV and just scroll through and see. I go, what do I feel like watching? Boom, 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 documentaries, boom. That's what I'm going to watch. It doesn't have to be playing. Everything is on demand. Radio, your favorite radio show we used to listen to in the morning on the way to work. Oh man, I work afternoons now. I know when it was me, when I switched from days to afternoons, I was upset because I missed my Drew and Mike, Howard Stern, all the stuff I would listen to on the way in. Guess what? Those problems don't exist anymore. You just go, yep, here's my playlist, boom. You listen to it on your commute, on demand. Radio, like everyone's like, oh, hey, if you're doing this, would you like to get back on radio? I was like, why? Like, did I really take a speedboat to get on the Titanic, wave to the speedboat as it goes away, and watch terrestrial radio and broadcast television just sink? No, right? And that's what I'm learning from these young people and from what is happening and changing in the movie industry. You see, there's a lot of independent thought, and the fact that I've got a few people locally that are doing good things, even though the dollars, that were coming into the city to do whatever aren't what they were, right? But
we were just talking about that.
But I still know people like my buddy Mike Alexander, right? I worked with him at one of the clubs. He's been in like 3 or 4 movies. He's now transitioning into others. He's doing the history of the dog lady from Monroe or whatever. It's some like folktale from Michigan or whatever. But he's actively, like, he quit his jewelry business and whatever, and he's acting and he's, writing and producing and, things just, it's not inconceivable for us to come up with an idea, shoot, do something, and produce something worthwhile, right? Granted, to get into, a film festival or whatever, obviously you still need the big money to go ahead and move it around and get it on, all the big screens or whatever. At least that's my take on it, But it is weird that everything that we've known no longer holds the same amount of water or credence that it once did.
Oh, no.
And it baffles me at some point.
The growth of technology will change it. The actual growth of technology is doubling every year. It's an exponential growth. Not just technology itself, but the actual growth rate of it.
When's the last time one of y'all called and ordered food and didn't do it online? Like, I do it here. I call Jimmy John's, or the little Hungry Howie's down the way because they got a good Caesar salad, whatever. Jake's trying to stay light for the ladies, right? So I need a Caesar salad. I need some wings, right? I'm gonna go ahead and leave the carbs alone, right? That's one of the Bachelor pad rules, that you get more action the skinnier you are. You know what I mean? Big Jake don't get as much love as little Jake.
But see, it's because we're tied to these phones. We're tied to technology. And it was funny. I was listening to an interview where a guy wrote a book. A guy, I guess, was I don't know if he was the founder or was one of the lead programmers for Google. And he said that that your phone is basically a slot machine.
Yeah.
And he said every time you open your phone, you're looking for the satisfaction of getting a notification,
affirmation,
getting a text message, or some type of affirmation.
Like my picture.
And that's exactly how Facebook and all of them get to us, because they know how they basically use us.
It's so smart. It knows you better than you. That's the point I made about where you're going to be at. Like, I'm not even. They did it in weeks and whatever. They did it out for years, and it's just insane. Of like, I'm going to be in Kentucky and whatever, job offer in Kentucky 4 months before that, whatever, just because it has every dynamic of your life as an algorithm. You know what I mean? You have an algorithm on Google that represents everything that you like and everything that you dislike, everywhere that you've been on Facebook. It tracks you, because even if you didn't post to Facebook, it's tracking you everywhere that you went.
Wait until they see mine, boy. I'd hate to see mine put out there.
But I mean, that's the point. Is the technology is changing the world, and you have to use it. That's what I'm saying. Is all the old lessons in school are still talking about old school. Is write to your senator. The population was a lot less then. You had a chance of the actual senator reading it. Yeah. Now they've got automatic software that replies your email. Your email does no good. No, go to town hall, right? And there are certain things that we can apply to make it a little bit better. And that's why I think.
I'm telling you, there's something in that magic giant calculator, man. I'm telling you. That there is something, and I hate to feel socially conscious in that way, but I think if these little youngsters can get properly motivated, you know what I mean? Because before Black Lives Matter, but as a whole, right? When you look at the 60s and 70s, the Vietnam War, the hippie movement, and whatever, that was a national thing. I mean, I don't care where they Okie and Muskogee, right? Even in little podunk, man, I've driven through that little podunk town on the way to Texas, right? There ain't but like 17 houses and like a football field and whatever, and that's it. And even through old country music, talking about hippies and whatever that were there, and it's bizarre. But last year I was like, where is the social outcry? Where is the Woodstocks? Where is the Vietnam protest and whatever? And I was like, I don't know what these little youngsters are doing, right? Because it's up to them, right? We're too old for that shit. We got shit to do. We got mortgages and bills, and somebody got to pay the light bill and whatever. I can't just run off to goddamn, North Dakota, whatever, even though we were going to. But, it was a flash in the pan. But I think there is something.
I just clarify, we didn't just think about going, decided not to. There was actually a ceasefire when the civil engineers or the Army Corps of Engineers came out and they said, look, we're going to redraft this. Like, that was the weekend we were
like, great, we're going to go there and everything's going to be cool and whatever.
Yeah, I was like, we go there.
Everybody going to be chilling and drinking margaritas.
Yeah, and we were like, no, let's wait and go next week. And then that little reprieve happened for a second, and then all shit broke loose. And we were like, balls. I would have taken a bullet or, a rubber bullet or two or some mace and whatever. I'd come back with a good story. I do half the stuff I do for story's sake. But yeah, calling for food, right? This is like going into that, dying mediums, right? Dying, just different things that are going by the wayside. I call. Hey, I'd like to place a delivery order. I'm talking, and it's not one, right? I sat here and ordered from different places every day. The average person that I get on the phone cannot talk on the phone and deal with the technology that's in front of them. I'd like a chicken Caesar salad. What kind of dressing do you want on that? Caesar, because I asked for a chicken Caesar, right? Well, and let me get a 10-piece, chicken wing. Oh, it only comes in 8. I was like, no. I order this every day. It comes in it's almost not even audible to listen to who I'm talking to on the phone. Now, that concerns me, right? Because what do I consider my craft or what I think the only God-given talent I have at this point is to talk. And granted, I don't communicate proper, possibly as well as you two. But I can be funny and equip it and whatever, and people seem to find me funny, right? But all these things are going to the wayside, right? So terrestrial radio, then this, then the YouTube, then, okay, so how long will this last? And eventually, like, I don't know, really dating myself, but Max Headroom, right? Where it was the animated blah, 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 blah. that eventually it will get to a point to where it's Max Headroom talking and not. And I look at it because, and again, self-preservation, right? What am I going to do when nobody talks anymore, right? I have a hard enough time trying to bang chicks through text messages. I'm not that good. My emoji game, if anything, is a bit out in left field, but it works.
If you wanna bang chicks on the text, you gotta step your emoji game.
You got to.
Your emoji game gotta be A1. And you gotta hit him with the little smirk.
But
with
just
the smirk, it's all good.
But just like me, and the way that I talk, and the way that I'll talk about this, and then make an analogy about a dog fucking a basketball with a fucking midget, watching in a corner. That's how my emoji game is, which I get a lot of. What? Did you just? You're so crazy and whatever. And I'm like, bitch, I don't know. I just hit some thumbs. I don't even know what this fucking means.
Like, emojis are like hieroglyphics for bitches. Once you figure out the code, once you get it going, it's a wrap. Yeah.
It's a different world. So the fact that we've even figured it out, right? Because we should be left behind, right? We should be. We are not, other than I think that we're of above average intelligence, right? You've got documentation for it, right? I just kind of hang out with y'all because y'all are smarter than me. But I think that there are so many people, like they're my friends and other people, and that's one of the things that we'll do. Tonight was an off-the-cuff bachelor pad or whatever. You guys were kind enough to come all the way out. You somehow found him. Last time I saw him was in an airport, and ironically, I hadn't seen each other in 5-6 years, and just, hey, what's happening? But the fact that you walked in tonight did bring me joy. That made me happy, man. I haven't seen you in a minute. But when we do go through bachelor pad stuff, right? Travis is technically a millennial. He looks like he's 48. You're 28, right? Yeah, he's 28. Look like he's 30-something, right?
Yeah, you look older than me.
You look, yeah.
I got you by about close to 10 years.
But he's immersed in it, but he hates his own generational culture. Hates it. Hates all of them, right?
I grew up Generation Y, but in 2002, they started calling me a millennial. I don't know what the fuck happened. I was a separate generation.
Because millennials can't keep their mind straight. They don't know what the fuck they want to be called. Call me this, call me that. No, I'm sick of that. I'm offended.
But most of the girls I mess with are all millennials. And it's weird because they look like the other ones that I used to mess with, like when I was that age, and then 10 years later, they were still that age. And so it's weird, but just all the stuff you have to do. So the weird part is every now and again, you do factor it down to an interpersonal communication and a conversation. And that's where my last bastion of I'm better than most, right? I can trick girls into doing whatever. I just in the last week or so, I try and be a lot like Jesus, right? And hey, believe in me or don't believe in me and do whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and be and whatever, right? That's kind of my mellow, chill approach, right? And I wait for it all to culminate, and, sometimes it works and sometimes it's like Blinko, right? Where you drop the little thing and it ding, 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 and it comes down, right? You can't control Blinko, right? You can try all you want. Roulette, I know they got the magnet in there. I know the people at the casino, they're on to me, right? But Blinko, that's kind of organic. I like Blinko, right? If somebody could tell me there's a way to fix Blinko, I'm going to give up. I'm just gonna go ahead and sit at the house. I ain't leaving no more. But it's very weird. I try not to because I'm schooled in sales, right? We studied facial recognition, FBI profiling from body language, the Mentalist Handbook, right? I mean, I left no stone unturned, and we read the same thing. We've got a bookshelf of stuff that we learned to be better at sales than the average bear, right? Of course, that doesn't help if you've got Asperger's syndrome and you can't communicate properly or whatever, right? So having the ability to communicate, studying,
yell at them, do they buy?
Being you somehow made that work. 19 yelling at people and whatever. We're like, I don't know what he does it or how he does it, but he sells. Like, dude, don't look. Just don't look. Don't listen. It doesn't make any sense. But he studied all the same things I studied, and it's weird. I had to insert my will the other day, right? Almost like old school pimp style, where I know that, and I'm like, I don't want to do this because it's mean. I know I can get what I want. But I don't like to do that anymore, right? I don't. 2008, Jake? Girl, leave that zero, get with the hero. What are you doing, man? That ain't nothing but a sandwich. So you're sitting here telling me that your man is doing this. What's your man got to do with me and whatever? I'm going to break out old school music and everything, right? What's your man got to do with me? So I had to do it, and I did it, and it was so easy. And I went, oh, they're not ready for this. They're not ready for this. And I got exactly what I wanted, exactly, because I was tired of playing around. And I kind of, like a cat playing with a mouse or whatever, where you could just pounce on it, bite the little mouse or whatever, but some cats play with mice, right? Cool, I'm not really hungry. I'm going to play with this mouse. I'm going to let him get a little bit bigger. Then I'm going to eat him, whatever, right? The catch and release system. But I did it the other day. And I almost think it's almost like a lost art. Because if I wanted to, and I wanted to manipulate, and I wanted to use all the things at my disposal, I could. I just don't feel that that's right anymore. I don't know if it's aging or getting mature or whatever. That's a stretch. But I did do it.
No,
I don't even sell people that walk in here. What do you like? And we take a back asswards approach to it. And they're like, man, you're a good salesman. And I was like, I just asked you some questions. You told me what the questions or the answers were. I showed you some things. I talked highly and nice about these items, and you chose. I didn't sell you a thing. You told me you wanted this item. You wanted this flavor. You did X, Y, and Z. I'm great at least attempting to explain and giving you every bit of knowledge you could have about both items, and you chose, right? And that's what I like, free will. Not exactly an atheist, I'm not exactly whatever. I also don't like labels, right? But what I do is I'm gonna put everything out there, right? But I do like when I use biblical terms or whatever, it makes me happy. But you have free will. You came in and bought something. You were in control. Every time I was explaining to a youngster, and we get into some of these topics when we deal with people on the Bachelor pad side. We teach them how to slow play, how to do X, Y, and Z. Detach yourself from the outcome. Do this 4 girls. Talk to all 4 of them. You're being cool, being friendly, right? What do we normally do? Like, nah, shit, I like Janie, man. Janie's the one I want to talk to. Janie. And if Janie doesn't come correct at the proper time, man, bitch, fucking, man, I put in all that time and whatever.
Get a gun.
Screw that. Be cool with all 4 or 5 of them and let them be cool and whatever. And you don't know. You may have initially thought, man, I like this, but I like her sensibility and whatever. And one day you'll be sitting and, hey, what's going on? Girl, turn around and stick her tongue down your throat. Shit, that works out because you made her jump off sides, right? The hard count, right? I'm going to sit, you can sit here. We can count until the seconds tick off the clock, But it is interesting, all these things, all the technology, all whatever, and I'm a little concerned that my generalized skill set, I don't know, like Max Headroom may somehow encapsulate all that needs to be done. So I'm trying to stretch it out as much as I possibly can. There's a pun in there also, but he ain't caught it. But
gotta stretch it out.
they gotta stretch it out.
Stretch it out.
Lord knows that's when I wake up in the morning before I go to bed. Well, I am going to stop recording, and it is 12:30 at night. I'm probably going to take it to the house, but we're going to chop this, edit it, and we're not even going to pretend that this is an actual production, seeing that it was done off my iPhone, and we'll be hella shout-outs if the iPhone technology is good. I'm going to have one stuck everywhere these mocks were.
You'd be surprised how good, it's not Steve Jobs anymore, it's, what's his name? Pete Cook, Paul Cook?
Paul Wood.
Something, one of the guys. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about how great it is, but we'll see. So have fun audio editing and see how well this pops out. You work in our software. Calling it a wrap.